You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Check out the Israel Sports Radio store by clicking on the store tab on IsraelSportsRadio.com. Great items such as t-shirts, hats, books, and much, much more. Price does include shipping, and we do ship throughout the entire world. All major credit cards are accepted to make your shopping experience easy and convenient. So once again, click on the store tab on www.IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting founder Dick Robinson.
You know, the media business has changed a lot since we opened our doors in 1964. Now media content is everywhere. On air, online, on the go. More than ever, companies are looking for people to help drive this new media.
At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, you'll get hands-on training on the latest software and equipment in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has placed thousands of grads in broadcast media careers.
It's all about versatility. You see, at a radio station, if you also know how to shoot, edit, and post videos, you become a pretty hot commodity. That's the training you get at Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Connecticut School of Broadcasting with locations up and down the East Coast from Massachusetts to Miami. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Connecticut School of Broadcasting, the nation's oldest and largest group of broadcast media schools. Redefining training in radio, TV, and new media. Get trained. Get connected. 1-800-TV-RADIO.
Live from Studio C at the Cherry Hill campus for the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, it's All Noise Radio's Sports Talk with the Spy.
Down goes Frazier. He scores! High fly ball into right field. She is gone!
Welcome to another edition of Sports Talk with the Spy here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, you want to join in on the conversation, 856-330-4749. You can also reach me on Twitter. Send me a tweet at the Yossi G, or you can send me a message on Facebook, facebook.com/sports talk. Happy Halloween, everybody. I know it's not really something that I should be promoting, but hey, what the heck. Happy Halloween, everybody. Hope you're ghouls and gals and the guys and gals, everybody together. You're all having a good time. Tonight, as soon as I'm finished with the show here, by all means, go out and get that candy. If you haven't already gotten it, trick-or-treating. Don't forget, please don't grab the candy. Let the candy be put into your hands or into your bag. Be polite, be kind. I think that's kind of the theme of the day, though. Be polite and be kind. I mean, you had it last night. Who would have thunk that Michael Carter-Williams and Evan Turner and the Philadelphia 76ers would have been on the receiving end of such a kind gift, a gift wrapping sort of an evening. You had, starting that day, it was Allen Iverson announcing his retirement in front of everybody.
We talking about practice.
A public retirement ceremony at the Wells Fargo Center. And then that night, the Heat come to town defending two-time NBA champs, and bam! Who would have ever thought that on this night, AI's night, Allen Iverson's night, that the Heat would have lost to the Philadelphia 76ers 114-110. We'll have plenty of that and more coming up after the break with our own Philadelphia insider, our Bluestein, our man there behind the scenes with everything going on with regards to Allen Iverson, as well as the victory that the 76ers had. Also, a little later on in the show, we're going to try to get our Boston insider on to talk a little bit about the Red Sox victory there in Game 6 last night at Fenway. First time that the World Series ended with a Boston win at Fenway Park. First time that has happened in nearly 100 years. So we're going to speak to him, Andy Gershman. Hopefully we'll be able to get him a little later. It's unconfirmed right now what the story is with that. And of course, your phone call, 856-330-4749. You want to chime in, get your message heard, speak a little bit about what is on your mind. Also, we have a big weekend now with the NFL, kind of the mid-season midway through the season. We have, of course, in the local area, the New York Giants are off. They have the bye week this week. The Jets play the New Orleans Saints, and, of course, your Philadelphia Eagles are playing against the Oakland Raiders in Northern California. So that, of course, should also be a very interesting matchup, but we'll break all that down a little later on. First one, just talking about the 76ers, just with regards to how they played last night, it seemed like it was almost as sure of a bet as you can possibly have if you were put down on a little bit of money on the 76ers to win. Or rather, on the 76ers to lose, to be beaten by the Heat, almost a sure victory on that. I mean, you were listening, I was listening to all different sports commentators around this area, even here in Philadelphia, and all I heard was how the Heat are going to come to town, and they're going to show up the 76ers, because it's not so much like really, in a sense, showing up to them, it's that they're simply a better team. And that this was the most surefire bet that you would ever have. And just look at the stat line, the odds. It was an minus 840 odds for the Heat. So that means you have to put down, if you would, let's say, to put down $84 million, you would make $1 million. You put down $8,400, you would win $1,000. So if you put down, of course, so in simple layman terms, you put down $84 to win one. But if you put it that for the opposite way, in terms of the 76ers, you put down $1, you win 84. You put down 100, you win 8,400. So certainly, you looked at that specific line. I don't think anybody was really, if you're betting in terms of the game itself, winner, loser, I don't think anybody was really going for that line, because it's almost so absurd as to how much money you have to put down in order to win something. Unless, of course, you really believed in all the hype. Like, I certainly did not see the 76ers winning. So you put down money on that, for sure. They'll go ahead and win. But look at what happened. They didn't. So hopefully nobody out there really put any money down on the actual victor or loser and came up in the wrong. However, you put down on the money line, in terms of covering the spread, it was only 9.5 before the game started. So that certainly was possible, and that's exactly what happened anyways. Obviously, if you think that, the 76ers would win, then you really made yourself a killing. But you look at the Sixers in itself, right? This season, the 76ers are going to be a pretty bad team. And you look at what Vegas has, I don't think that they're really correct. They're plugging the 76ers into be near historically bad with 16.5 wins. That's the over-under for the win total for the 76ers this season, as per Las Vegas odds makers. Well, look, they're going to be a bad team. There's no question about it. They're not going to be historically bad. Yes, the mainstream media has gone ahead and they made this big hoopla and fuss over, what Sam Hinkie, the new GM, has done. And that, of course, is that he did not hire a coach before the draft. And Hinkie thereby believed that you don't need a coach to meddle in on what the general manager does in terms of drafting players. And the other thing is because the 76ers are operating at around the league minimum for payroll, and it took them a long time to fill roster spots, then you figured that perhaps the Philadelphia team was in it to tank for the season. They just wanted to lose. Not necessarily that they don't care if they win, which is what I think is where the team is heading, that they're ambivalent towards winning, but I don't think they want to lose. Now, remember, the distinction is important because when you have a team that wants to lose, they're going to lose. If you have a team that doesn't care if they win, they'll find a way to win. They'll find a way to get the best player down the road in the draft, if that's where you're talking about, a free agency or something, a trade perhaps. They'll find their way to make it to the top. Hinkie, the GM for the Sixers, knows how to judge these kind of advanced stats sort of things, right? And when you look at what he sees, and he was in Houston before here, and he worked with Daryl Morey as he's the Rockets general manager, and he knows a couple things. You can't contend without a superstar or a couple of star players on your team. There's also a market for inefficiencies that are able to be exploited for many, many players. In other words, you have scorers who get overvalued, and you have efficiency being undervalued at times as well. So, yes, draft picks are very valuable, and even especially if your talent evaluation is solid, then you can get bottom-level draft picks and make the most of those picks. Make the right picks in the second, the third, the fourth rounds of the draft. Doesn't all have to come in the top 5, top 15 of the first round. So that's where he finds that he has to put his focus, Hinkie. And when you look at the roster that the 76ers have this season, with guys like Michael Carter-Williams, with guys like Evan Turner, with guys like Nerlens Noel, who probably will be out until February, but there's the building blocks for the future here. And you have other players who are trade bait that can possibly they can dangle out there for to get those supporting cast stars to help their superstars or blossoming, budding superstars down the road. And when you talk about what they have to give up to get Nerlens Noel, I mean, Drew Holiday was on the team beforehand. If you look at some of the things that you're going to lose for Drew Holiday, I think that over the next 4 years, which is what they have for Nerlens Noel on the roster, I think you're going to get far more superior output from Noel than you would have gotten from Holiday. But it's not going to be this year in terms of November, December, January. It'll be down the road. If you're looking for immediate gratification, yeah, Drew Holiday is your guy, because Noel he's not playing. He's got the knee injury. But if you're looking for down the road, and that's what the 76ers are looking for. I mean, together we build is their slogan. So it's not going to be this year. Probably it's not going to be next year. But I have a surprise, because when you look at this team and the players that are on there and the schedule that the team has, you see that there is that possibility that when it comes to end of February, when it comes to March basketball, that they're going to be playing teams who will want to lose. So not only are the 76ers not only are they going to surpass a 16-win season, I actually think it's going to be closer to 25, but when you get to that point in time of the season, about 60 games through, you're the end of February, beginning of March, and you're facing teams that have nothing to play for as well. They're also playing for the lottery draft or for the possibility of getting that number one in the lottery draft. Well, guess what? You can throw in a couple more wins. You're playing in a division where just pretty much the Brooklyn Nets are pretty much the only good team in that division, and you play in the Eastern Conference, a much weaker than the West Eastern Conference, where you can squeeze into the playoffs. Dare I say that these 76ers could squeeze into the playoffs, but it is a possibility that they can squeeze into the playoffs were they to exceed 35 wins. Don't rule it out, because certainly it is a possibility, especially when you get down the road. I think this whole over-under with 16.5 wins is ridiculous that they have in Vegas, and if smart money says to go with the over, because they will get the 16.5 win being a quote-unquote tank year. And also don't forget, the last two teams that sort of tanked on purpose in 2002, 2003, and 2006, 2007, I mean, those last two teams that tanked on purpose only had 17 and 22 wins respectively. So when you look at that method, the way it goes, and how the whole David Stern, Adam Silver kind of, juxtaposition of overlapping in terms of NBA commissioners, I don't think they're going to want their last or first year being that, a team tanked on purpose in order to try to get the first overall pick and probably make that, winless for Wiggins type of thing going on, that whole slogan, to get Wiggins out from college and bring him to the NBA. I don't see that happening, and of course, a smart money thereby, I would just have to say, is on the over for 16.5 wins in Vegas. The 76ers, I would plug in for 25 wins. It's a bit of a stretch to say 35 and a playoff spot, but it would not shock me. On the other side of this commercial break, we're going to bring in our all Philadelphia sports insider, Ari Bluestein, CEO of SFBN High School Sports Network and voice of the Drexel Dragons. He will be breaking down this whole 76ers thing with me, and he will also be giving us his comments about the whole Allen Iverson retirement ceremony that went on yesterday at the Wells Fargo Center. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to Sports Talk here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Honey, again you're sitting here sulking?
I hate my job and I don't know what to do to change it.
Get off the couch and go check out the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
The Connecticut School of Broadcasting? What's that? The Connecticut School of Broadcasting offers a career and lifestyle change through a broadcasting experience you won't ever forget. Log on to GoCSB.com to find out how a career in broadcasting is for you and not just the people you see on TV or hear on the radio. CSB focuses on many aspects of real-world broadcasting, and their knowledgeable instructors teach you through a hands-on approach so you're in the studio in no time. To find out how CSB can help you work in an industry you love, call 1-800-TV-RADIO or check us out online at GoCSB.com.
Why work 50 weeks a year for a 2-week vacation when you can enjoy your job every day?
Don't just sit there. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Thanks, CSB.
Your computer is blowing up to the sounds of All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Welcome back to Sports Talk by here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, you want to chime in on conversation, 856-330-4749, or send me a tweet at the Yossi G, or you can always send me a Facebook message, facebook.com, and search for Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi. You know, you're talking about these 76ers, and you're talking about, of course, the whole Allen Iverson retirement party and everything that he brought to the table that we always knew and that we always loved from the guy. Graciously listed at 6 foot, $160. I don't even think he made it to 5'7", to be quite honest with you. But even if, you know, we go ahead and we say that he is indeed 6 foot, $160, just every time he came into the paint, every time he attacked the basketball, or rather the basket, you thought to yourself, oh my gosh, this guy can do it. And we are bringing in now the guy who is going to explain to us how possibly Allen Iverson was able to do all of what he did. Was it indeed something that was God-gifted, or was it just something that a guy simply wanted to get the ball in the basket? Ari Bluestein, the CEO of SFBN, the high school football network, and voice of the Drexel Dragons here in Philadelphia. What's going on, my man?
Nothing much. Excited over a Sixers win.
And how about that Sixers win? That was pretty crazy. I don't know about you, but I was listening before the game. And you had all different sports personalities from local, so, you know, guys like Mike Missinelli locally, and you had guys, nationally like, Stephen A. Everybody was calling for this to be the surest of sure things, if there ever was a sure thing in sports. And everybody said that the Heat were going to win. And I guess that's why you play the game.
Yeah, that is why you play the game. And really, if the Sixers were going to pull this off, this was the time to do it. There were a few things that were working in their favor. Number one, Dwayne Wade was out. So that was number one. Obviously, that helps. You still have LeBron James, the best player in the world, and Chris Bosh, Ray Allen, future Hall of Famer. So, obviously still a mismatch on paper, but that certainly helped. Number two, Miami coming off a back-to-back. They had to travel. And number three, they're coming off an emotional win over a Chicago Bulls team that people are expecting a lot out of, with the return of Derrick Rose and the night that they unveiled the championship banner and all that, all those ceremonies down there in South Beach. So really those three factors certainly worked in the Sixers' favor, and I think the Sixers came out and attacked with Miami still asleep, and that's why they got out to the 19-0 run. Now, obviously Miami came back and had a ridiculous third quarter, and the Sixers showed a lot of resiliency to come back and take it in the fourth quarter. So it was pretty interesting, and like you said, that's why they play the game. It's probably one of the biggest upsets in Philadelphia sports regular season history, I must say.
Well, you look at the Heat, and you also have to remember that for this team, what they did last season, I'm not going to buy the whole it's a back-to-back thing, because they were 15-1 last year in the back-to-back games of a back-to-back, and certainly Dwayne Wade. It helps for the Philadelphia 76ers that he was not in the lineup. But come on, look at the lineup that the Heat possess and the team, the players that they have. This should have been an utter decimation. And especially when, like you mentioned, the third quarter where Miami outscored Philadelphia 45-34. You figure that if you're a team and you score 34 points in a quarter and you're still outscored by 11, and yet you still go ahead and win that game, that's kudos to you. Mostly, I believe that's kudos to the coach and what he did and what he's doing with this young team. And he knows that he's got a bunch of young players, and he knows what they possess in terms of strengths and, of course, in terms of weaknesses. And he's trying to play towards what they can deliver on the basketball floor.
Yeah, I think Coach Brett Brown really got off on the right foot here. You can kind of see what his philosophy is. He's letting his players play, letting them learn on their own, and he is huge on player development. Obviously, he was big with that with San Antonio. He started as the director of player development with the Spurs several years ago, and then moved up to assistant coach. And I think that's the same approach he's going to take here. And I think even a guy like Evan Turner, who we've seen him struggle over the last few years under the tutelage of Doug Collins, who takes a completely different approach to young players. You're seeing Turner thrive, and he put up 26 points. I think he might average, 18 to 20 points a game this year. And I think Brett Brown is going to let him play. I think he did a great job. I think that he's done a great job of getting some other talented role players in here, like a guy like Tony Roten to support Michael Carter-Williams. And obviously his key thing is to develop MCW into an NBA all-star type of point guard, like what he did with Tony Parker. And I think he's certainly off to the right foot, on the right foot rather. And, it's great to see the Sixers might actually have something, and obviously not this year, nothing's going to happen this year, but, they might have a bright future. And I think this has got the city excited. Obviously expectations are low for this year, but I think people are thinking, wow, this might actually work. We are moving in the right direction.
Now, in terms of the 76ers and in terms of this year, we all know that the Vegas odd makers have the 76ers at 16.5 wins for this season, the over-under, if they're going to tank it, or as the saying goes here, winless for Wiggins. But does last night and the resiliency that the team has shown, and certainly when you look at Michael Carter-Williams' college versus last night, like two different players, and when you have a team like was on the floor against the Heat, does the entire, tanking of the season, does all this 16.5 game talk, does this all go out the window, or is this really just one game?
Well, it's just one game. I don't think tanking was ever the plan, obviously, for Brett, especially for Brett Brown. Not sure about Sam Hinkie, the GM, but Brett Brown certainly, he's not going to tell his team to lose. And I think that obviously if the Sixers don't end up with the worst record, which is a possibility now, because there are some other bad teams like the Charlotte Bobcats, the Phoenix Suns, and the Orlando Magic could be thrown in that mix as well. I think that, with the NBA lottery, you never know. I mean, the Sixers ended up with the number 2 pick and drafted Evan Turner when they had, 5 to 7% chance of getting the number 1 pick, and they finished second in the lottery. So you never know what happens in the NBA. A lot of times, the team that has the worst record doesn't get the number 1 pick. And I think one benefit that can occur, Yossi, from winning is free agency. As you know, Sam Hinkie, the GM, is a master at the salary cap. He's already made a couple moves, including dumping Drew Holiday's salary and big multi-year contract. And I think that once other contracts come off the books, like Evan Turner, we'll see what happens this offseason with him, like Kwame Brown, a wasted contract, the Sixers are going to have some room to work in free agency. And if the free agents see that the Sixers are competitive and beating the Miami Heat, even with the roster that they have. They might want to play for Brett Brown, knowing especially that the Sixers have 2 first-round draft picks in one of the most talented NBA drafts coming up in 2014. So I think it could be a good thing. I think it'll be exciting to watch, and we'll let it ride. We'll see what happens.
I definitely hear that, and certainly you bring up the draft, and of course we're talking here with Ari Bluestein, the CEO of SFBN, the high school sports network here in Philadelphia, and also the voice of the Drexel Dragons. Now, when you bring up the draft, and you were talking about, it's not a sure thing, it's not a set thing that the number one or the worst team in the league is going to get the number one pick. Shouldn't that also kind of go into the whole idea of, hey, it doesn't always go that way? You look at what happened with Allen Iverson. It works out sometimes, but not always. Look at what happened, for example, with the Knicks in '85. They weren't supposed to go ahead and get Patrick Ewing, and they got him. Look at the Houston Rockets with Yao Ming. Of course, that we know what happened with Yao, but just in terms of the draft, again, they were 13th. They were kind of a middling team that year, the Rockets, and they got the number one overall pick. Not everybody is like the Cleveland Cavaliers, where they score the number one when they're the worst team. But in terms of Allen Iverson, he was the number one pick for the Philadelphia 76ers back in the late 90s, and LeBron called him the best pound for pound basketball player. I don't think he meant it as pound for pound, because then you have to say Michael Jordan. I think he was referring more to the 160-pound frame that Allen Iverson had, and you go down his career stats. 11-time All-Star, 1 league MVP, 4-time scoring champion, and the guy can play. What did he mean to Philadelphia that he started his career here and that he ended his career on the floor that he spent most of his time?
Well, first off, about the pound for pound, I think that, you try to measure boxers pound for pound, because obviously you can't compare the lightweights to the heavyweights, because if they were to battle in the ring, the heavyweight would most likely win just because there's so much power to the punch. I think that he was saying pretty much what you said, Yossi, that, he's 160 pounds. He came in listed at 6 feet, probably was more like 5'10", 5'11", came from a bad neighborhood, made it, had a good 2-year college career at Georgetown, was the number one pick, and he managed to stick in the NBA, win the MVP, win the scoring title. And I think what he meant to Philadelphia, tying that in, is that you have this little guy running around on the floor, overachieving in a sense of, he's not the body build of LeBron James. Not many people are like that, where you're 6'8", 270-some pounds, and you can dribble it like a point guard and defend like a center, and take it to the hole like a small forward. Those guys don't grow on trees. So for Iverson to do what he did, coming where he came from with the body type that he had, I think a lot of Philadelphians could relate to that, because he did it with hard work. He gave 110% every night, and that's one thing he said in his press conference here in Philly yesterday. And I think that Philly is a blue-collar city. You want to see guys like Allen Iverson, like Chase Utley, these guys that pour their hearts on the field, give it 110%. That's what they want to see. They want to see the prima donnas. And Iverson certainly was not that. Yeah, he had his off-court problems, and he did get a lot of flack for that. But he put it all out there on the floor, left nothing behind. And I think, that, and plus the run in 2001 to the NBA Finals will be in the thoughts of Philly sports fans' heads for the rest of their lives. I know I grew up watching Iverson, and he just was an amazing player to watch. When he was on, he was just great, and he put it all out there on the floor. And that's really all you can ask for from a player here in Philadelphia.
Would you say that he's a surefire Hall of Famer? I mean, you look at his numbers, 11-time All-Star, a league MVP in 2001 when he led the Sixers, literally just took the whole team, put it on his shoulders, and went to the finals against a great, and I use that term very strongly, and I rarely use that term great, against a really great Los Angeles Lakers team with guys like Kobe and Shaq and, of course, Phil Jackson as their coach, and a 4-time scoring champion. Do you think he's a Hall of Famer?
I think he's a first-ballot Hall of Famer. You look at him and the scoring that he was able to put up, I think he's got to be first ballot. I mean, if he's not first ballot, he'll definitely be a Hall of Famer. You got to separate the on-court from the off-court. If you don't like him off the court, it doesn't matter. The good thing is the Philadelphia media likes Allen Iverson. Obviously, there was always a lot of things surrounding him, whether it was issues, in his home life or rap music or showing up to practice late, showing up games late. It doesn't matter. And judging by the press conference from yesterday, he is loved here in Philadelphia, not only by the fans, but also by the media and the former players and the Sixers organization. And that always bodes well because the media are the ones ultimately that decide who goes in the Hall of Fame. So I think that he'll definitely be in the Hall of Fame, and I think the fact that he put the Sixers on his shoulders for all those years. I mean, look at the guys that he had to work with, especially 01 after Theo Ratliff got hurt. They got Mutombo, who was past his prime. Aaron McKee was Sixth Man of the Year. He was obviously a solid player, but the rest of the starting lineup was Eric Snow, George Lynch, and Tyrone Hill. And the top reserve, other than McKee, was Jermaine Jones. I mean, come on. Iverson was the reason why the Sixers had the success they did when he was here, and he really didn't have a whole lot of help. And I think that's got to be taken into account as well.
I think that certainly will be taken into account. As always, Ari Bluestein, thank you very, very much for your time taken out for joining me here, and everybody out there on the Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi.
Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. And that was Ari Bluestein, the CEO of SFBN, the High School Sports Network, and, of course, the voice of the Drexel Dragons here in Philadelphia. For all those out there who have been living under a rock for the last, probably dozen years or so, who don't know what he's referring to, don't know what Ari Bluestein was referring to in terms of practice and all the flack that he used to get for that, I'm going to play a little clip right now for everybody.
It's easy to sum it up when you just talk about practice. We sitting here, I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice. I mean, listen, we talking about practice. Not a game. We talking about practice. Not a game. Not the game that I go out there and die for and play every game like it's my last. Not the game. We're talking about practice, man. I mean, how silly is that, man? We're talking about practice. I know I'm supposed to be there. I know I'm supposed to lead by example. I know that. And I'm not shoving it aside, like it don't mean anything. I know it's important. I do. I honestly do. But we talking about practice, man. What are we talking about? Practice? We're talking about practice, man. We're talking about practice. We're talking about practice. We ain't talking about the game. We're talking about practice, man. When you come in the arena and you see me play, don't you?
Absolutely.
You see me give everything I got, right?
Absolutely.
But we talking about practice right now.
But it's an issue that you're
we talking about practice. Man, I hear you. It's funny to me, too. I mean, it's strange to me, too. But we talking about practice, man. We're not even talking about the game, the actual game, when it matters. We're talking about practice.
Everything that Iverson brought to the table, certainly he had his characteristics and he had those things off the court, but certainly he always was able to bring a smile to your face, whether on the basketball court or to the press conference room with all those reporters there. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after these commercial breaks. 856-330-4749. If you want to chime in after we come back from our commercial break, you're listening to Sports Talk with us here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
It's been 48 years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has helped place thousands of people, just like you, in exciting careers in radio, television, and the new media. At Connecticut School of Broadcasting, our hands-on approach is different. It's designed to have you spend less time in the classroom and more time in the studios. From the first day, you'll work with state-of-the-art equipment. Learn by doing from our team of industry professionals who come from their studios to ours. The best part about it, you'll learn it all in a matter of months, not years. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. So do what I did. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO. Step into the fast-paced world of the broadcast media. Day and evening classes begin soon. Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Get trained and get connected now. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com.
All Noise Radio. The noise you can't ignore.
Welcome back to Sports Talk with this here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, you want to chime in on the conversation, 856-330-4749, or send me a tweet at the Yossi G, or a Facebook message, facebook.com, and search for Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi. You know, we're talking a little bit about the entire, you know, the World Series and whatnot at the end of the of what was going on last night, everything that happened. First time the Red Sox ever won a World Series and won the deciding game in Boston. And, you know, it looks like we're going to go to the phone lines right now, take some of your calls, some of your comments about this. We're going to go to the phone lines right now. We're going to bring on, looks like this is Lou from Jerusalem. Lou, how are you?
All right. This is Lewis calling from Jerusalem, and it's great to talk to you, OCG. And even though it's great to talk to him, not in the best mood because the Cardinals lost last night in the World Series. So, kind of bummed, but overall, good year for the Cardinals. They go to the World Series 2 out of 3 years, 2 pennants. Mike Matheny's second year goes to the World Series. But I feel bad for Beltran. You know, he played over, I think it was 2,000 games. This is his first World Series in his career. I think he's 36, 37. So I felt bad for Beltran, but, you know, I think he'll be back. That Washington's a good player. He's 22 years old. And their core will pretty much remain intact. So they probably actually have a better chance of going back to the World Series than the Red Sox do because the Red Sox have a lot of older players.
Well, look at what the Cardinals have going for them. They do have, like you mentioned, a bunch of young players, and a lot of that core is going to remain. They have to make some of those decisions now. Once this is all over, I think there's another 5-6 days before they have to start figuring out who their free agents they're going to retain. Like you mentioned with regards to Beltran, he is one of those guys who may be gone next season, and there's rumor that he may be going back to New York, possibly signing with the Yankees. So certainly in terms, if he wants to get back to the World Series, I really think that his best bet would be to stay in St. Louis, because I really don't see the Yankees going anywhere in the near future anytime soon. I really think that this is the start of a meddling Yankees team. Yeah, they're going to try to get there, but I think the Cardinals have that right theory where it's young, where it's stay in the farm, where that sort of thing. And you look at what happened in the World Series. Look at what the Red Sox brought to the table. Look what the Cardinals brought to the table. Both teams getting all those wins in the regular season, both finishing with 97 wins, identical records, and this really was a culmination event for both the Cardinals and what Mike Matheny has done with the team in the transition over from Tony La Russa, as well as the Red Sox and what has been going on there with that franchise, from last year's debacle with Bobby Valentine.
Yeah, you look at last year, the Red Sox, their disaster, and Bobby Valentine probably never managed again because the year before, the Red Sox, before he gets there, they almost make the playoffs. The year after he leaves, they win the World Series, so he's probably done. And I want to say, David Ortiz, wow, that's amazing. 38 years old, World Series MVP. He led the Red Sox in batting average, home runs, and RBI. And I guess the only juice he's having is orange juice, right? No, I don't think so. There's nothing fishy there. And he, unlike Beltran, was listed in the Mitchell report. So I'm still having a hard time believing that at 38 years old, he did everything clean. This could be a team World Series. My Cardinals are clean. I don't think anyone on there is taking any roids.
Well, the question. Oh, come on.
Cheated.
Come on. You really think that your Cardinals were all clean? I mean, obviously, you can't say. You can't say that. You can't.
I'm going to go with the cheating card.
Listen, you can't say that. That a person or a player cheated. You don't have that evidence. You don't have anything like that. And look at what the Cardinals had to do in order to get back. They had to make those tough decisions, and they did. Look at the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. I mean, look, that's where Albert Pujols is, and where are they now? They are they're not a good team. Pujols, certainly the Cardinals got rid of him or allowed him to walk in free agency at the right time. He was 33 years old when he left, so they had to make these tough decisions. Arguably the most popular player in baseball and arguably the best player in baseball when they let him go to Los Angeles. And Look at where the Angels are now, and look at where the Cardinals just were. So that really brings that you don't have to. I mean, forget all about the cheap shots and the cheating and all of that other stuff that you're bringing up. I mean, come on.
Well, when I was out with Pujols, I said 2 years ago when they were thinking about giving it a big contract not to do it. I've been very vocal about that at the time and been vocal since that was the right move, and clearly it was. So did Albert Pujols? I don't know. I can one thing fish Albert Pujols. A lot of people say that he is older than whatever his age is. That's something that I've heard a few times. So it could be there, but. I mean, I don't know too many Cardinals are on that Mitchell report, or except McGuire, of course. Mark McGuire did it, but when he did, the Cardinals weren't good, and when he was done as a player, the Cardinals actually did much better without Mark McGuire. So I'm very proud of that. If you look, Mark McGuire was basically done after 1999. He was injured the last 2 years of his career. And 2000, Cardinals went to the NLCS, and 01 they made the playoffs, and 02 the NLCS, and that's when really they started their dominance in the last 13 years. Was after McGuire went south. So I'm very proud of that fact, OCG.
Well, that just goes to show that not necessarily does cheating work. And as the old childhood rhyme goes, cheaters never prosper, that sort of thing. Well, listen, Ari, when if you kind of look, Lou, and you see what this roster has, and you see what what the Red Sox have. I mean, both these teams really bring a lot of differentiations, and yet the same thing to the table. I mean, one spends a lot, one doesn't spend that much, but yet they both know where to go and get those core players that will stay on the team and will be on the team for a long time. It's a lot through the farm system, and every now and again, plucking somebody like a David Ortiz or like a Mike Napoli off from the free agent market and signing him or trading for them and bringing them to your team to help the young guys get to where you want them to be. So you look at what the Cardinals have, and I certainly see a bright future ahead.
Well, regarding to Mike Napoli going to the Red Sox, when he signed that deal last year, I thought he just did that for the money because so the Red Sox are in last place. Like, what's he thinking? And Mike Napoli plays catcher, and they moved him to first base. I figured out he just kind of do it as a vacation because playing catcher is very difficult. It's very taxing on the knees. So I thought he kind of wanted to eat a couple years of his career. But apparently, he knew what he was doing. The Cardinals didn't really make a lot of moves last year. They got Beltran 2 years ago, and that worked out pretty good. He's statistically the greatest postseason hitter ever. But something I want to say before I go, OCG, this whole Joe Buck and the Carver thing about them being biased towards the Cardinals, that, you know what, who cares? Joe Buck's dad is Jack Buck, and he was like the Harry Carey of the Cardinals, and Tim McCarver played for the Cardinals in the 60s. So, of course, they're going to have bias. They're human beings. They're supposed to be roll-ups. And what I can't stand is that people expect them to go so far the other way to try to act like they don't have bias, like Troy Aikman does with the Cowboy games. And people need to give these guys a break. I'm a fellow broadcaster. These things aren't simple, and these things aren't what we're trying to cause this team to lose. They have an affection for the Cardinals, and so they probably voiced that a bit. And whatever, as they said in different interviews, they just can't win. No matter what they do, they'll be accused of some type of bias. I've gotten that myself doing the football league games. People accuse me of bias. It's stupid. I don't care who wins. I'm just there to broadcast the game. They might want the Cardinals to win, but they don't actually influence the game. So people got to give them a break on that.
No, they're not influencing the game, but you got to also be aware that you're broadcasting to a national audience that it is partial. You have to remain impartial towards the game. You may like a team versus another team that you're broadcasting about or that you're watching. In this case, you may enjoy watching the St. Louis Cardinals or have a rooting interest for the St. Louis Cardinals to beat the Boston Red Sox. Well, guess what? You have to be able, you are professional enough that you have to be able to take that off from your entire demeanor and your delivery. You have to make sure that does not come across, because you are broadcasting to a national audience, not to the St. Louis fans, and certainly not to the Boston Red Sox fans. You're broadcasting to everybody. So no, I don't agree with that at all. And Lewis, thank you very much for the phone call here. Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi. But in terms of that last comment, that's completely wrong. I don't see that as being something that should just be swept under the rug. No, they're right, because guys like that, if they bring up, I know Jack Buck was the voice for the Cards, and I know that Joe Buck and Tim McCarver, who's now officially retired, I guess, because he said this was going to be his last playoffs to be broadcasting, but both of those obviously did not want to have the Boston Red Sox win. They would much rather have the Cardinals win, and you heard that in their delivery. You heard that in how they broadcast the game, and that is a problem, because you need to have that impartiality. They're not sports talk show hosts in St. Louis or in Missouri, for that matter, or even in New York, who may not like the Boston Red Sox. These guys are broadcasting the game. You have you just have to bring the facts, Jack. That's it. Just call the game like you see it. Don't bring in no anecdotes about what people may conceive as you being less analytical about the Cardinals, and are being more critical about the Boston Red Sox. Bring in things, nice anecdotes, nice tidbits, fine, here and there, but be honest and be truthful for both teams. Don't let it come across the radio waves, or the TV waves in this case, that you are biased towards one team. That's just, it's not appropriate. It's not professional, I don't think. 856-330-4749 if you want to climb in on the conversation. On the other side of this commercial break, I'm going to break down a little bit about what's going on and around for the NFL, what we have to expect this upcoming weekend for football Sunday, Week 8. Here we go. That's Week 9, actually. Here we go. You're listening to Sports Talk All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
You know, our jobs occupy more than half our waking hours. Shouldn't we be doing something we love? Call Connecticut School of Broadcasting at 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Since 1964, Connecticut School of Broadcasting, with a network of 12 campuses from Massachusetts to Miami, has helped place thousands of grads as DJs, sportscasters, entertainment reporters, behind the scenes in audio and video production, every aspect of the broadcast media. Connecticut School of Broadcasting has trained men and women of all ages and backgrounds in a matter of months, not years. Learn by doing from area radio and TV pros. Call 1-800-TV-RADIO or log on to GoCSB.com. Remember, it's never too late to love what you do. Day and evening classes begin soon. Get trained. Get connected now.
Your computer is blowing up to the sounds of All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Welcome back. Spot here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. As always, you can chime in 856-330-4749, or you can send me a tweet at the Yossi G, or send me a Facebook message, facebook.com, and search for Sports Talk with the Sports Rabbi. Always, don't forget, I'm always here. I can answer, try to answer, do my best. And an interesting thing happened was it yesterday? It was 2 days ago. I was reading this thing. It's the anniversary of Sandy, 1 year since the Superstorm Sandy came and wreaked havoc in this part of the country. And I was reading that there's the Flying Fish Brewery that is located originally in Maryland, but now has a location in Somerdale, New Jersey. They made a special tribute, sort of, for a beer. They produced a beer that was special for this 1 year anniversary occasion. And when you talk about beer, and I like to consider myself a beer aficionado, and I look at, I'm looking at this thing, and I'm talking about how it's described, but the real thing here that got to me wasn't so much the beer, which carries a solid alcohol content, and it wasn't so much the flavors, which is, there's a lot going on there, but when you talk about a beer being produced for something like this, it certainly is a very positive and very nice touch when I see, as part of the article that I was reading, how the Flying Fish Brewery took their first batch of beer, which is, I believe, about 12 kegs, and you're only able to get it on tap at the brewery, and 100% of the cost for the beer, that's the cost of the beer, the profits, everything went to the Sandy Aid, help Sandy victims. And what's cool now is that they're producing at a slightly larger production, is that $1 for every bottle sold, and 50% of all profit, that's for the beer and also for the merchandise, goes to the Sandy victims. You can pick it up. It's called the Forever Unloved Sandy, or simply FU Sandy. 6.2% alcohol, and it's got a new hop variety called the Azaka hop, grown locally and given for this specific beer by the farmer. And it has fruit notes of things like pineapple, melon, pear, and of course it has a peppery note at the end to liven it up and give it a clean, dry finish. You can get it while supplies last in the Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey areas. And one of the things that I'd like to do with a beer like this is sit back and, watch a nice football game on Sunday and whatnot. And, we heard, of course, Allen Iverson and his whole practice rant, but this is not practice when it comes to NFL Sunday. You have the New York Jets, and we'll talk a little bit about New York Jets shortly, taking on the New Orleans Saints. The question, of course, in this game, is it too much offense against even the Rex Ryan D from New Orleans, or will Rex Ryan's defense stand up to that same win-lose? I mean, they lost last week, so they got to win this week type of scenario that they've been going on middling the entire season. And, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles take on the Oakland Raiders in Oakland. The Eagles can't throw anything. They don't really have much of a quarterback, as their situation is crazy. It's pretty nuts in happening in the quarterback situation in Philadelphia. And the Oakland Raiders, Terrell Pryor, their quarterback, can run and he can also throw. So certainly will be, the Oakland Raiders, I believe, are favored by 5.5 in this game, and I really don't see why it shouldn't happen. Another big issue that's been going on with football is the Jets. I mean, just look at what's going on right now, right? We're halfway through the season. The team's is middling, shall we say? 4-4. But there are a lot of positives, a lot of bright spots that you can see it. You can really see how Rex Ryan, he grabbed the defense by the horns and he said, "This is mine. I'm going to be running the show here. So you better listen to what I say, and you better listen to what I tell you to do, because I am." And we all know Rex to be that defensive genius. And when you look at how his team has been playing, he's certainly been able to recognize weaknesses, recognize the different strengths that his team and his players have. And what he's been able to do is go after the strength and stay away from the weakening ability of some of his team players, and been able to exploit the strengths for the benefit of the team. I mean, look at the offense. For right now, I would have to say the offensive MVP for the team has to be the quarterback, Geno Smith. Because there isn't really much competition on the team as is. I mean, the wide receiving core is depleted. The running back situation is by committee at best. So, yeah, of course, he's going to cost, and he did cost a couple of games with turnovers, but he also won a couple of games because of his deep throwing abilities, like against the Buffalo Bills, and also his poise in the clutch in the fourth quarter Monday night against the Atlanta Falcons, and the mobility that he had and he displayed against the New England Patriots. So the all-around sort of MVP for the offense for the Jets has to be Geno Smith. Love him, hate him, you're going to write it out with him, certainly this season. The defensive MVP has to be Muhammad Wilkerson, the defensive end for the Jets, and up there in front. He's a no-brainer choice. He's always 7 sacks right now, career high at this point already of the season. He's got 1 pick. He's forced a fumble already, and at this point he's a lock for his first Pro Bowl selection. And if he keeps this up and he displays the same defensive aptitude that he has the first half of the season, and he shows this the second half, he probably is going to get some votes for the NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Special teams has to be Nick Folk, because when you have perfection, there's no other way that you can go. Look at Folk. He's 19 for 19 on field goals, 3 game winners, and put him up next to Wilkerson, you're probably talking about the team MVPs. The most improved player on the Jets, I would have to say, is Bilal Powell. I know he didn't really run much last week or the week prior to, and it was all Chris Ivory for the most part. But he began training camp as an afterthought and worked his way up the depth chart to the starting job. He's become a more elusive runner than in the past, and he certainly has showed his worth and his value to the team as the season progressed and as the games went along. The biggest surprise is probably nose tackle Damon Harrison. He came out of nowhere last year and just bypassed Kendrick Ellis, who's probably the least improved player on this team as a whole. And Harrison is probably the number one reason outside of Rex Ryan why the Jets are number one against the run, stopping the runners in their path, plugging those holes right there on the front lines, and getting after the quarterback and some of the other offensive player in the backfield right at the point of attack. Biggest disappointment, I would have to say, is Antonio Cromartie, the corner. He had a Pro Bowl season last year. I would really contribute that more to how Darrelle Revis played on the other side of him, so he was able to shut down on his side. But he's already allowed 5 completions of over 45 yards, and his uneven play that he's had sporadic throughout the entire season has made it much harder on the defense to deal with the Darrelle Revis departure to Tampa. So Cromartie's got to improve his play right now if the Jets are to make any sort of a run from where they stand right now in the second half of the season to make a run at the playoffs. The best kept secret on this team is probably also cornerback Ellis Langster. He doesn't lead the team in tackles on special teams where he plays most of the time, but he is the most dynamic player on that coverage unit. So if you're a team and you're trying to figure out a way, the Jets haven't given up any runbacks this year. Last year was a little bit of a disaster. The year before that as well. So when you look at things on one of the most improved areas, this is probably their best, their most secret weapon. And of course, the biggest concern is that there's not enough offense. In the 4 losses, the Jets have managed only 2 touchdowns. They only put out 2 offensive touchdowns in their 4 losses, and they face 4 top 12 defenses in the second half. So if you thought that they could probably get it going, it's a bit of a stretch, and they really have to get it going in the second half. And the other key, of course, is you need continued improvement from Geno Smith. Passer rating has continuously gone up, and also you need the pass defense has struggled mightily, and that also has to go up. And outside of the New Orleans Saints, who they face this weekend, there aren't any other top 10 passing teams that they're going to face in the second half of the season. But it starts this weekend with the New Orleans Saints that they have to, play ball, so to speak. And lastly, I'm going to leave you all just some other comments from around the NFL with a thought. Can Peyton Manning hit 6,000 yards this season? Because, you think maybe Aaron Rodgers could have, but he's got a depleted wide receiving core. Peyton Manning, right now, is on course for 5,800 passing yards, 58 touchdowns, and 12 picks. 6,000? I think you probably throw in another skinny post or something like that, another deep slant every game, get you another 20 yards, and he'll get there. Think about it. A couple more yards every game, and we're going to be talking about the first player to ever throw for 6,000 yards. And who would have thought this possible? As soon it was 5,000 yards was that big number. And now we're talking about 6,000 or the possibility for 6,000 yards. Pretty crazy if you ask me. Well, that's all for tonight. We'd like to thank our guest for jumping on, Ari Goldstein, CEO of SFBN Sports Network, the high school sports network here in Philadelphia, and voice of the Drexel Dragons, and of course your phone calls and your chimes and your tweets. Thanks for tuning into Sports Talk with us right here on All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
All Noise Radio, powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. All Noise Radio is an internet radio station that's fully produced by graduates of the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. From modern rock to old school hip hop, country to classical, news, talk, sports, and more. It's the noise you can't ignore. Log on to allnoiseradio.com. Fire up the station. Find out more about your favorite jocks. Get the latest CSB news and more. Plus, you can take All Noise Radio with you on the go for free. Just download the Live 365 app to your iPhone, iPod Touch, or BlackBerry and search All Noise Radio. Check out tomorrow's broadcasters today at allnoiseradio.com. Powered by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. All Noise Radio. The noise you can't ignore.